the Treasury Minister Alfred Cannan.
Good morning. Last week I announced a package of measures which were brought about to combat what was effectively the overnight collapse of business revenue to certain sectors of our economy. Those measures were not enough. As this crisis has escalated, it has become increasingly clear that we need to do more, much more, to help everyone across this island nation in our fight against this lethal virus. All of us have a role now to play: government, businesses, and individuals. All of us are impacted. Every action that we take is critical, every decision that we make is vital, and my role now is to equip you all, as much as I can, with the financial tools to take the right decisions and to provide a safety net, if necessary, in your hour of need. In order to do that, I have taken the considered decision to commit substantial sums of money from our reserves in order to bring forward the most comprehensive package of support that I reasonably can. The measures being introduced today, the support that is being offered, the nature and the range of proposals on offer are quite simply unprecedented. But I am confident that what we are doing will not only provide the framework to keep businesses alive and provide reassurances to individuals in their hour of need, but that it also links appropriately with the overall strategic approach now being adopted to defeat the virus on the ground. But I must be straight with you. The measures that I'm about to announce, although substantial, will not necessarily protect every business or save every job. Government alone cannot win this fight. As an island nation, we have limited physical and economic resources. But what we do have is speed of thought, speed of action, flexibility, and an ingrained, proven determination to succeed. So that is why, in order for us to overcome the economic and fiscal challenge this virus presents, each and every one of us now has a responsibility. And this responsibility means that those of you who have done well over the years, that have built success and security, that have successful and profitable businesses, or have built substantial wealth that will enable you to sustain short-term cash flow problems, now is the time for you to stand by your island and stand by your staff. For those of you facing more severe challenges, now is the time for you to work with your staff to find solutions and options to get through the next 3 months. And for the workers, now is the time for you to support your company, consider carefully the value of retaining your jobs, and to engage across your colleagues and your work community. Everyone must contribute and engage in what is now a national effort to keep jobs open and businesses alive. So when this darkness turns to sunlight, and it will, this nation and this economy will be ready to bounce back. Turning now to the specific measures that I intend to put in place to support businesses and individuals. Firstly, in order to help businesses retain their staff, a wage support package will be provided that will, for up to 12 weeks, provide businesses with a contribution of £280 per week for every full-time equivalent staff member that they are paying. This figure is equivalent to 75% of last year's living wage calculation. This direct wage support will be available to all sectors with the exception of specific sectors in technology, financial services and e-gaming, where we consider that the effects of the crisis are not yet being felt so severely. This support will be backdated to cover March's payroll. It will provide those businesses who have been materially affected with an opportunity to consider how they might find the ways and means to retain and pay staff, even if this means on reduced rates and even if this means they are working from home. I will keep the time period for this support and the scope of the scheme under review, and I will amend it as necessary. Details of this scheme and all the others that I am going to announce today will be available shortly. However, I recognise that businesses do need cash now, and the fastest route to achieving this is through your existing relationship with your bank. I can announce, therefore, we have agreed to work with the island banks to create a new loan guarantee scheme. Through this scheme, the government will support and underwrite 80% of new lending to viable businesses with certain criteria applied. For those businesses demonstrating previous good management and profitable activity, this should provide a solid base to source additional funds to meet immediate working capital pressures. As a further measure to help support cash flow, I am providing businesses across the economy with the option of deferring any VAT payments due between now and the end of June 2020. No interest or penalties will apply to deferrals of VAT payments due during this period. We will also work on a case-by-case basis to defer tax and national insurance payments for any business finding themselves in difficulty at this time. These measures will give support where applicable, immediate support to businesses by keeping cash at their disposal during this extraordinary period of uncertainty. I've already announced last week that any business in the affected sectors can currently apply for a £3,000 grant. Today, I am extending this to anyone who is self-employed in the affected sectors and extending the provision to include those employed in the smaller retail industry. In addition, I will extend the scheme to employers in qualifying sectors with only one employee. It is vital that we maintain our strategically important industries and assets so that we are well positioned to recover after this event. I am therefore setting up a special fund to assist businesses to maintain critical assets through this period, even if they cannot trade. This will be aimed at the visitor accommodation sector, making up to £5 million available for this purpose, and I will consider the inclusion of other strategic industries in the future. There are numerous examples at present of businesses demonstrating their resilience and changing their operating models. I applaud this fighting spirit, and to assist with this, I am amending the terms of the financial assistance scheme to provide an initial £3.5 million to which government will offer match funding for necessary infrastructure needed for those businesses that want to change their operating models. Of course, these measures may not protect every job. I am therefore announcing that as from today, we are creating a new welfare benefit for those suffering job loss or those unable to work as a result of COVID-19. The new COVID-19 benefit will pay out to anyone on the island who finds themselves in these circumstances at a rate of £200 per week. The benefit will be in operation from the 6th of April. In addition to this, I will ensure that measures are introduced under the Emergency Powers Act to ensure that no one will be evicted from either their homes or their business premises for non-payment over this period. I'm pleased to confirm that we have been speaking to the banks, and I expect them to support our population through a range of measures, including mortgage, loan holidays for those who have been affected and seek assistance. I've also been in discussion with the key utility providers, and the Manx Utilities Authority, Manx Telecom and Manx Gas have all indicated a willingness to consider support for anyone affected and have committed that no one will be cut off as a result for the next 3 months. I cannot emphasise enough to you that this is now a whole island effort. Last week in Tynwald, I paid tribute to those on the front line, our doctors, nurses and healthcare workers, and now increasingly our policemen and our civil defence. I committed to them that they would get the financial resources they need without question or delay to keep us safe and to protect lives. Now it is the turn of all of us across this nation to play our part. And I know that across this community, huge numbers of you are engaged and willing. Today, I have brought forward £100 million of direct support that we need to join this fight across the economy. Now, we must think, act and work together as an island nation to overcome this unseen enemy. It will be hard, there will be sacrifices necessary, but the sooner and the quicker we can do it, the sooner and the quicker we can get our economy and our nation back on its feet. I wish you well. I'll take questions. Tim?
A lot of measures, and a lot of measures I'm sure a lot of people will obviously welcome as they are struggling financially. Simple question to start with, can we afford it?
That's a really good question. In terms of the measures that I'm bringing forward, yes, we can afford. We estimate that we may be committing up to £140 million, actually, if you include all the measures together. And we could afford those measures alone for the next 6 months. The problem that we are facing, and one that people must realise, is that we are also seeing reduced income coming in now as the domestic economy falls away. As the strategy now is to ask people to stay at home, there is obviously less spending in the economy, less turnover, and therefore less direct income into government. So we estimate that were all our measures to be taken to capacity, and were the crisis to extend to its fullest extent, based on the information that we have today, that it could cost us up to £300 million in the first 3 months and up to £600 million over a 6-month period. That's why it is vital now, Tim, that people pay attention, stay at home, start to social distance, apply self-discipline, because not only are they protecting themselves and protecting the health of others, they're now also got to think about protecting the economy. And the sooner we get this virus under control, the sooner we can start getting back to work properly, the quicker that we can recover. And the purpose and objective of all these measures today is to keep the economy alive for that purpose, to ensure that when this is over, we can quickly get back on our feet. The purpose is to keep people in work. We're asking employers to work with their staff, and even if they have to send them home, even if they want to send them home on reduced rates, in many ways it's better for them to keep that relationship and for the employer to take the £280, or so the employee to be receiving that £280, than it is to fall back onto the benefits system. So we've provided a framework today for businesses, business owners, for staff to work together to understand what their options are and to take the right decisions. And people must now take the right decisions in the interest not only of the health of individuals, but also in the greater interests of combating this disease, so we can get our economy back on our feet as soon as possible.
And a second question, and it's the one we've been asked the most in relation to economic circumstances, is self-employed and zero-hour contracts. If you could just repeat really what the measures are and what help there is available to them.
I'm not going to go into detail now. A lot of information will be published in the hours, minutes and hours following this. But basically, the self-employed, they have access to £3,000 immediately as a cash grant to them, providing they're operating in certain sectors. And for those with 0 hours, I would urge them to be working now with their employers based on their previous earnings to understand how they can best take advantage of that £280 a week that we're providing directly to the employers based on their payrolls that they submit. So that's for a full-time equivalent employee.
Thank you.
Paul Bolton, MTTV. Getting people to spend money in the economy, you haven't really touched on that. I mean, this is very important because people are going to take a deep breath, just like with the financial crisis. Is it not very important that people spend money where they can to keep the economy going? Because you don't have the ability to go into deficit, and you can't make war bonds in the war and that sort of thing. Are you going to rally local companies to put money into you?
In Tynwald last week, I urged everybody to think very carefully about how they're spending their money, and to absolutely, where possible, spend that money on local produce, local goods, and in the domestic economy rather than online and have goods shipped to them where possible. I have to accept that the domestic economy, and to a large extent, is beginning to shut down, and that people actually do not necessarily want to spend other than on key essentials. So that is why it's absolutely vital, accepting that, we all now take the measures to social distance, stay at home, get this virus under control, because as soon as we can do that, then we can start to relax and to start getting the domestic economy going. The package of measures I've announced to a day accepts almost that domestic economy spending will significantly reduce from here on in, and we are all about providing a framework now for people to make appropriate decisions in order that we can all fight this virus. And the best way to fight the virus is stay at home if we can and to social distance, and that's what the framework is about. We will review the economics of this alongside the success or otherwise of the strategy that's being employed now to try and get the virus under control.
You made clear you cannot go on forever. You don't have a bottomless pit. how long can you go?
Well, as I said, if we extended this whole range of measures out for 6 months, given the financial position of the government, we would eat into almost effectively £600 million worth of both lack of revenue that's coming in and with the £100 million per quarter, if you like, of the measures that I've announced. That is significant. We would have to review our strategy at the 8-week point, at the 12-week point, and consider what other measures we could take to help support the economy. We're treading in the unknown, and that is part of the problem. So we need to obviously track and understand where we are from a health perspective, and also we need to, and we will in the next few weeks, work as quickly as possible to understand what our recovery strategy is and how we would implement that. I want to make clear that over the last 5 days, officers, politicians across the Department for Enterprise and Treasury have worked flat out morning, noon and night to put this package together. It's absolutely unprecedented. We can sustain this, and we're confident we could sustain this for up to 6 months. We will look at what other measures are necessary once we are over the initial hurdle and once we get everybody to stay at home and commit to combating the fight against this virus. June.
Thank you, Treasury Minister. The United Kingdom has cancelled business rates. Will you be doing the same, and has any discussions taken place with local authorities over this issue of rates? Because it's quite a big issue within the business community.
Not yet. Again, we have delivered a package of measures which we believe are right and appropriate. The point is we've given the framework now for businesses to make decisions themselves. So for example, if they're self-employed, if they're an individual that's self-employed, they can access the £3,000 grant. If they've got employees, they will be able to access the £280 per week per full-time employee. We've also created a fund that will enable businesses that have simply lost customers, the £5 million fund. They will be able to work now with the Department for Enterprise if the appropriate action for them is effectively to suspend their business and almost put it into a sort of freeze until this crisis is over. There are options for everybody within this package. We've got to still work out 1 or 2 items of detail, but the basis is there. I'm confident that we've got the broad outline of the package that we need to successfully overcome this. But I must be clear with you, and indeed with everybody, we are working to protect jobs and save businesses. We may not have enough to protect every job and every single business.
Have you, or has the Council of Ministers, the Manx government, approached the United Kingdom for assistance?
In terms of?
Well, assistance, mainly a question to you in terms of financial aid, should that be required?
I don't believe we will need to approach that. I think we have a robust framework to be able to cope with this ourselves. The package is unprecedented. We are working on the basis that in the next 12 weeks, this island, across the island, the community, the business community, workers, those in the community are going to work together and apply their minds to successfully overcoming this crisis. And if we do it, if we now take heed of everything that's been said, effectively apply the closures that we've applied to the borders in terms of people coming to the island and being residents only, I am confident that we've got the basis to overcome this, and then in 12 weeks' time, we will be in a much better position to understand how we can quickly and successfully exit. As I said, we have yet to apply our minds to the what-ifs in the later scenario, but we will do, and there are options available to us.
So one further, are you saying that then that the abolition of rates is off the table at the moment?
The abolition of rates?
This year?
That is not at the moment in the package that we have brought forward. We have the cheque available, £3,000, and that actually was brought in line to almost compensate for the Chancellor's announcement in the UK. And bear in mind that, of course, people, the level of rates is significantly different. But nothing further is necessarily off the table. This is a fluid and flexible situation. We will consider other measures, and we will consider extending these measures to other sectors of the economy. But you will understand, of course, our strength is our reserves. Our weakness is the ability necessarily to print money, and of course other bigger nations have that weapon up their sleeve if they needed to employ it.
Hi, Josh Stokes, ITV. First question, you've said a £3,000 grant for particularly self-employed people. How far do you think that will go, particularly for self-employed people? Do you think that's enough for them?
Well, again, like everybody else, they will have to work. We've provided them with a framework. There's an initial check of support, and then one needs to examine their individual circumstances. Do they have employees? If so, there's other measures available. Do they have a business that might, for example, be put into suspension, if you like? Then the Department for Enterprise will work with them. In terms of the overall level of support, it's equal and equivalent to what else is available in terms of people who not only will they get a £3,000 check, but as I said, they can access these other measures. I'm confident that we have done the best that we can with the resources that we currently have available to give people the framework with which to work. And as I said, if it is a case that they are under significant cash flow pressures, they must also look at speaking to their bank. They must also look at, for example, thinking about deferring VAT payments or deferring national insurance payments. So people need to think now. Government cannot think on behalf of everybody. The whole nation now must use their initiative to work out how best, what is most applicable to enable them to get through the next 12 weeks, with the package of measures that we have announced today.
And second question, given the extent of the crisis, and you said yourself there's a chance not every job could be saved here, why wouldn't reaching out to the UK be an option in that case?
Well, because we need to provide the framework. I'm confident that our package actually matches any package that's being delivered anywhere of support to the island. And as I said, we are planning to make sure that we have a robust enough framework to extend this beyond the 12-week period, and that we do not need to reach out to the UK, that we will be able to bring in other measures to support the economy, perhaps to help with our cash flow problems, and to see us develop a very successful exit strategy.
Yes, good morning, Rob Bradshaw, 3FM. I just wondered, obviously, with the amount of initiatives that are being brought forward by yourselves, there are a lot of different ways that people are going to be applying for this support. Naturally, that's going to come with a huge amount of applications over the next few days, the next few weeks. From your calculations in the Treasury, how long on average do you think applicants could be waiting for each individual scheme from the time that they apply to it to actually receiving it?
Right, so that's a really good question. I mean, a lot of these schemes have only been finalised in the last 24, 48 hours, and there's still a lot of detail to apply. I think in terms of the benefit, the welfare benefits, we can get that up and running very, very quickly. So for anybody who is in desperate need, the welfare system will be up and running, and they'll be able to access the COVID benefit within days. In terms of the other measures, they're designed to give confidence to business that we are now prepared and willing to support them, and will give them an indication as to what levels. I would urge them, therefore, if they are concerned about immediate cash, to study the measures carefully and to contact their bank if they need to, who have given us the commitments they will work considerately with businesses to understand how the cash flow is going to be impacted. And as I said, that £280 will be available on March's payroll, and we expect within the next couple of weeks we will be getting cash directly to businesses based on their submission of their payroll.
My second question is similar, if not a bit more specific on that. The Chief Minister mentioned yesterday, obviously, with the borders closing to non-residents, but he did mention the fact that the likes of freight and fuel will be arriving from the UK as normal. He also mentioned that any non-residents who are coming over work-wise in critical areas will need prior approval from the Chief Secretary. Those personnel may involve, like, say, lorry drivers coming over on the boats or coming over on the planes as part of the mail services. If all these individual cases happen to be signed off by the Chief Secretary as part of these measures, how long could that take, and could that cause any disruption to that flow of services coming through on those channels?
Well, first of all, I don't think so. I think the measures are absolutely crystal clear. The Chief Minister was absolutely crystal clear. We're clamping down. People can only come onto the island if they've got an exemption certificate, and I don't regard lorry drivers as being a critical part of the infrastructure. Those measures were outlined. they have no material impact on our ability to manage the domestic economy at the moment.
Thank you.
Sam Turton, our newspapers. In terms of this, in the UK, this has been referred to as an event recession that's coming. How confident are you at the end of this year, man, the economy can bounce back quickly?
Could you just, sorry, I just missed that.
Sorry.
You said a word before
in the
recession?
UK, they're saying it's an event recession, so it's not like 2008, this is a short snap. How confident are you that the island can recover quickly at the end of this?
The quickness of the recovery will be dependent on how quickly the island, the nation, applies itself to getting this virus under control. The quicker we can do that, the quicker that we can recover. A lot of our businesses actually, in theory, could recover quickly, providing that we keep the economy alive. The longer this goes on, the longer it extends, the greater the chance of recession, and that becomes increasingly more serious as we go beyond the 6-month point. But I'm absolutely confident that we have on this island, collectively, the ability to think now on our feet, to work out the best solutions, and to be able to prepare ourselves for the return, because it will return, this virus will be conquered, and we will get back to normal. But the island has now a superb opportunity to take note of the measures, to apply them for businesses, for employees to work together. We do all that successfully, we will get back on our feet quickly, efficiently and effectively, and we will avoid the chances of a long-term slump.
And the second question is a bit in two parts, I suppose. Will this need Tynwald approval, or is this something you can go straight ahead with? And also, will it affect capital schemes that were announced in the budget last month?
So some of these measures do need Tynwald approval. I have briefed Tynwald members. I've worked extensively with my colleagues, both in the Treasury and with politicians in the Department for Enterprise. Everybody is 100% on board. I briefed Tynwald members this morning. They're 100% on board. They recognise that we now need to take measures to protect the economy, to protect jobs as much as possible, and to provide people that safety net. I have no doubt that when we come to approve these in the next few days, by whatever method, that Tynwald will give its full support to the measures that we're bringing forward today. Is that it?
No, just one.
One question. Right.
Minister, thanks for a very clear briefing. Just a brief question that people are going to ask now, and it's two parts. For businesses and for individuals, what action do you want to take now? Obviously, we're talking about April 6th for the introduction of these payments, but what action do people need to take now?
I want businesses to think very carefully about how they can structure themselves to get through the next 12 weeks. What is the best option for them? How they can retain their staff. And I want businesses, employees, to take responsibility now, to understand that it is better for everybody to try and keep this economy intact as much as possible, and that means keeping the relationships between the employer and the employees, and we've got the mechanism now to do that and to work out the best solution. And if people are uncertain now, they must contact the Department for Enterprise or the Chamber of Commerce, and they will provide the advice and guidance that they need. This is about responsibility. Everybody across this nation must now take responsibility. I expect those businesses that are in a good enough position to see themselves through, to take responsibility, to stand by their island, to take responsibility for their staff. For those businesses where the position is more critical, to work together, both with their staff, their employees, if necessary with DFE, to understand the package of measures, and please also work with the banks. We need to utilise every tool at our disposal. If we can do that successfully, we'll succeed.
But in terms of practically filling out forms or anything, there's nothing as individuals people need to do at this moment in time?
All the details will be announced. We'll get clarity on what people need to do and how they can access this money, and that will be released in the coming minutes, hours, and within the next day or two, so that we can provide clarity for everybody.
And just one very final question, that's in terms of these things, you announced them, they're done for the right reasons, absolutely. There will always be somebody, sadly, who will try to sort of spin it into their advantage. Will there be measures in place to make sure these aren't misused?
I am absolutely confident now that everybody understands their role and responsibility. The vast majority of people on this island take huge pride in approaching all these matters with integrity. It's up to everybody now to work, to understand, and also to ensure that they are not taking advantage of the system. I would be incredibly disappointed were people to do that. I'm confident in this island. I absolutely believe in the people. I know that they will use this framework to support them if they need it and if absolutely necessary. So I'll take one more question, if that's all right. I appreciate that.
Just one.
Yeah.
It's just occurred to me. Given the strength of the Isle of Man's manufacturing and engineering sectors, which may be hit by this in a substantial way,
Yeah.
has any thought by Treasury been given to the redeployment of capital? So that's allowing the encouraging the manufacturing sectors to make things like medical equipment or hand sanitizers, like they're beginning to do so in the UK?
So yes, to a degree. If a business, as I said, wants to change its operating model, believes it's got a solution, either for the immediacy that would help the island or for the future, then we've got a grant available. I think your question actually also extends more broadly into government spending our capital schemes. What we're going to do in the next few weeks is review our capital programme now. We're going to think about how quickly we can get the island back on its feet as this situation starts to improve. And we're going to look at what we can bring forward to the local economy, if you like, in terms of either infrastructure or other spending that government can bring forward that's already in our programme, already scheduled in, and that would help support jobs and businesses going forward. Thank you very much.
So there we are, Treasury Minister Alfred Cannan.